On March 25, 1965, civil rights demonstrators marched into Montgomery, Alabama, led by Dr. Martin Luther King, and they were singing, "Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, I've never been to heaven, but I think I'm right. You won't find George Wallace anywhere in sight." I thought I would save you from my singing voice there. It took the non-violent protesters 5 days to make the 54-mile trek from Selma to Montgomery. When they began their journey on Sunday, March the 21st, there were 3,200 marchers taking the trip. When the group arrived at the destination, they were 25,000 strong, moving Dr. King to comment when he addressed the assembled crowd, "There never was a moment in American history more honorable and more inspiring than the pilgrimage of clergymen and laymen of every race and faith pouring into Selma to face danger at the side of its embattled Negroes." Despite the triumph of the moment, the weeks leading up to this point were filled with senseless violence and bloodshed. In January 1965, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the SNCC, and Dr. King had been campaigning for voting rights in Selma. Despite repeated attempts to register to vote, only 2% of the local black people had managed to do so. Police brutality, it was common in the region, so it was hoped that national attention would be drawn to the cause. This was all in the hope that new voting rights legislation would be enacted. At first, there were many arrests, but little violence. But then, on February the 18th, a policeman shot a church deacon, Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was trying to shield his mother from being beaten by the cop's nightstick. This man died from his injuries 8 days later. In response to Jackson's death, activists first set out to march from Selma to Montgomery on Sunday, March the 7th, but were ordered to disperse by state troopers and local law enforcement. When the marchers refused, the officer in charge ordered his men to advance, and the group was attacked with tear gas and with clubs. Police on horseback pursued those retreating and continued to attack them. When these events were televised, it sparked national outrage and made Governor Wallace, Selma, and the state of Alabama look very barbaric. King and his fellow activists, they planned to retry the march on the 9th, but when the crowd reached Edmund Pettus Bridge, the site of Sunday's violence, King stopped and requested that everyone kneel and pray with him. They turned around and they headed back to Selma, avoiding further confrontation with the police. Not everyone agreed with King's restraint, but it gained him the support of President Lyndon Johnson, who had pleaded with him to postpone the march until an order for federal protection for the participants could be obtained. On March the 17th, voting rights legislation was submitted to Congress by President Johnson. When the march began, on March the 21st, those taking part were under the protection of the federalized Alabama National Guardsmen and the FBI. The Alabama National Guard had to be federalized because Governor Wallace refused to spend state funds on protecting the marchers. The federal judge who approved the demonstration, an old friend of Wallace's no less, ordered Wallace and the local police not to harass the marchers. Standing on the steps of the Capitol in Montgomery, King summed up what is considered by many to be the high watermark of the civil rights movement. He said, "Once more the method of nonviolent resistance was unsheathed from its scabbard, and once more an entire community was mobilized to confront the adversary. And again the brutality of a dying order shrieks across the land. Yet Selma, Alabama, became a shining moment in the conscience of man. If the worst in American life lurked in its dark street, the best of American instincts arose passionately from across the nation to overcome it." So I really hope you liked that video. There's a new channel from me. It's called Highlight History. You probably know that. You're watching this very channel. As it's new, it would be helpful if you subscribe to it. If you want to, click subscribe, click the notification bell if you actually want to find out when we put out new videos, all of that good stuff. Also leave us a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. Let us know how you like this channel. And as always, thank you for watching.